If you're gonna be chasing walleyes in the month of August, you definitely clicked on the right video. I'm gonna be sharing a bunch of really good information that'll help you put more walleyes in the boat this month. We're gonna be hitting on location, different presentations you can use to catch them. There's gonna be a bunch of great information you're gonna get from this video. And we're also gonna catch some fish as well. So a little bit of action and some great information. So buckle up, we have a hook set coming in just a couple seconds. There we go. All right, guys. We're out here chasing walleyes today. It's a smoky day, just like it is every day. And we're gonna be talking about August walleye tips that'll help you put more fish in the boat this year. Let's see what we got here. Oh, just a nice one. Just a nice one. Oh yeah. Just decided to start fighting once she saw the boat. Pretty good fish, actually. Come on. There we go. Nice walleye. It's probably like, it's like a mid 20 incher here. 8. A paddle tail, how about that? Beautiful fish. All right, we'll get her back. All right, that was a beauty. Nice 25 incher to start the day off. And yeah, hopefully we'll put a few more walleyes in the boat for you, but the important thing is you're gonna get some tips for catching more walleyes in the month of August. So buckle up, let's jump right into the first tip. So the first thing I think we should talk about is location. So for me, the way I'm working these spots is I'm actually working these spots outside in when it's August. So I'm going to start on the outside on the deeper structure. I'm going to see if there's fish using that structure on the outside, and then if they're not, then I'm going to go in and I'm going to check some of the shallower stuff, see if I can find fish up in the weeds, up on top of flats, stuff like that. But this is the first month where I do feel like I spend most of my time, or 90% of my time on the outside looking for some of those bigger fish. August has always been like a lead core troller's paradise. So you're talking about, trolling for fish that are suspended outside a structure. And it just seems like by the time you get to August, pretty much all of the really, really big plus size fish are pushed out. You're still gonna find some up in the weeds and up on some of the shallower structure and cover that you like to fish. But it seems like August is the month where it's truly a full blast summer pattern. So I'm looking at super, super deep humps. It depends on where I'm fishing. Like right now where I'm fishing, I'm actually fishing kind of like big 40 foot deep structures. And then I'm looking for fish that are suspended up on top of it, like 10, 15, 20 feet down. But, on a lot of lakes that I'll fish around home, especially, we're talking about deep humps that top out at 20, 25, 30, somewhere in that range. You're going to see fish sitting right on top of it, and you're going to see fish suspending around it. Another favorite of mine is just big main lake points. It seems like the fish will once again sit on top of it and also suspend out around it. So those are a few, but if I had to pick one, I love deep water humps. I love it when especially when the humps are close to each other, so you can actually just fish from one hump to the next, because a lot of times you're going to find that the fish are actually suspended between the couple humps. So like they're probably using both of them, but they're also using the area in between, and they're corralling bait and chasing bait, just swimming, floating around, suspended between these different pieces of structure. So those are a few of my favorite spots that I like to look for. But a lot of the standard stuff still plays. Like if you have a big flat, maybe there's weeds on the edge of it, maybe it's sparse weeds. A lot of times you'll still see fish out on the edges, kind of right around the areas where it breaks. But more so, I'm finding fish either on that cover or out suspended off of the break. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I just got out and fished with Brett and TJ a couple days ago, and the spot where I was catching a lot of nice walleyes was sort of like an inside corner where there was like a small little hump on either side of the either side of that corner. So the fish were kind of sucked up into those corners. So make sure you look for those corners still this time of year as well.
All right, back to fishing. Now, one thing that I really like to do this time of year is put the trolling motor on 10 and move really, really quickly looking for suspended fish. And one thing that's important when you're doing that is being really accurate with your cast, because when you're going so fast, you basically get one shot to put the jig on top of the fish's head before the boat's on top of the fish, basically, and then you're probably not going to catch the fish.
There we go. All right, the next tip I got for you is just as far as presentation goes, I really like to go either real big or real small. Ooh, just got real tough. He was fighting towards us, I think, originally. I can actually feel the fluorocarbon rubbing against their teeth, which freaks me out. Still haven't seen the fish yet, so I don't know if we got a pike or if we got a big walleye. We'll see. Come on, buddy. I just want to see what you look like at least. I just got to know what species we're playing with here. It's a good one, whatever the heck it is. I kind of think it's a big walleye, I think. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's a big walleye. It's a big walleye. It is a big walleye. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a nice one. All right. That is a good one. We got to measure him really quick just to see. So I better put the head cam on here. Just barely touching 28. 28-inch walleye. What a stinking beautiful fish. Gorgeous, Walter. Beauty. All right, we'll get him back real quick. Treat him good. When they're 28, they're this close to being a 30, so you got to let them go, let them grow. But anyway, presentation-wise, right now I'm throwing a Swimbait, a big 4-inch Swimbait. I've got a 1/2 ounce head on it, and for me, when I'm thinking presentation this time of year, I'm thinking two things. I'm either trying to go aggressive, or I'm trying to go ultra finesse. So obviously you can have success in between, but for me, a lot of the presentations that I like to use, I like to either tempt them into biting when they're being a little bit finicky, stuff like that. If they're being finicky, you know, sometimes you got to get them to, you know, you got to tempt them with something like a jig and a crawler, a bobber, you know, a jig and a leech, even like some sort of like live bait rig, like a Lindner rig or whatever, where you have, you know, a leader that's 3 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot. So I'm either trying to do those finesse presentations, or I'm trying to upsize really big and get them to come up and just destroy the bait. Those are basically the two goals. So I talked about the finesse side. On that aggressive side, the stuff that I do like to use ends up being, you know, stuff like bigger swim baits like I'm using right now. I'll use those up in Canada. I'll use those back home as well. And then also like any kind of darty hard bait, you know, so you got like puppet minnows, you got jerk baits, you have finishers, you got stuff like that. Those types of baits will get bites in midsummer. Even if the bite is tough, you're still going to trick some fish into biting that. So just because they have to make a split-second reaction, and the fish's metabolism this time is still super high, you know, they're still having you know, they're still eating a lot of food, and they have to be aggressive because their metabolism is high. So they're feeding, but sometimes they can be a little finicky, and you know, they're eating like bait fish, you know, they might be eating smelt, they might be eating ciscos, you know, all different types of stuff, perch. So they're eating bigger prey that they have to be aggressive for, but you have to make them make that decision quickly, because the bait that they're chasing out in these lakes, they're moving quickly. They don't want to get caught. So they're forcing the fish to make a decision quickly. So that's what you need to do as well. You need to make them make that choice. So like I said, some of those bigger baits, you know, big plastics, hard baits, stuff like that. And then for me, when I just can't get them to go on some of that aggressive stuff, you know, it's slowing down, using live bait, using jigs, using rigs, using bobbers to seal the deal on just the super, super finicky fish.
Now, most presentations are widely applicable to a bunch of different bodies of water this time of year, you know, from the finesse side all the way up to the power fishing side. But obviously, some fisheries are going to be more inducive to one bite or the other. The lake that I'm on right here, they really like big paddle tails.
Come on, take it. There we go. There we go. That mark looked pretty good. We'll see what we got here. Man, I love August fishing. I really, really do. It seems like the fish are either so tough to catch or they are super aggressive. I would say in the month of August, you never see a fish move as quickly, or I would say you never see a fish like come up and drill a bait as hard and as fast as when you're fishing in the month of August. Just with their metabolism being so high, they just get so aggressive this time of year. This is a nice one. We probably should net this one, but I'm just gonna grab it. He's big. He's like a 20. He's like a 25 or a 26. I think he's at like a 26. Just tail grabbing 26s. Gosh, look at him. Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if I should have been tail grabbing him. There you go. All right. Let's look at what he's got. So let's talk about color in the month of August. I'm just gonna check him. I'm gonna check him on here really quick. Mouth closed, tail pinched. 27.5. All right. 27.5. Let's get her back in the drink. There she goes. All right, color in the month of August. There's a lot of thoughts, a lot of theories. You're always gonna have people with their own opinions. Now here's the biggest problem with color, is whatever I tell you, there's always lake to lake variations. But for me, when I'm doing August fishing on a lot of the lakes that I'm fishing on, even if I'm traveling, stuff like that, a few of the things I'm thinking about, if it's a fishery where the suspended forage is super, super key, there's ciscos, stuff like that, there are a lot of natural colors that I like to use. So I'll pull this guy out right here. Silvers, kind of blacks, whites, anything kind of in between that's not on the color spectrum, you know, anywhere from white to black. You got all the grays and stuff like that. But a lot of times for me, summer is just, it seems like in summer, the biggest thing happening on a lot of bodies of water is not just the suspended bait fish, but also just like a lot of different bugs. So I like to use kind of buggy colors as well. So this is green pumpkin. Green pumpkin actually imitates a lot of stuff. It can imitate, you know, as far like it can imitate leeches, but it's really a buggy color to me. So you can go all natural, you know, with something like this. But sometimes I like to have a head that pops a little bit. So I got a little chartreuse head. It does seem like chartreuse is just a color that works all season long. Walleyes just really, really like it for whatever reason. So sometimes I'll take a natural body and I'll put like a brighter head on it. And it doesn't have to be chartreuse. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's purple, stuff like that. But a lot of times what I like to do, you know, whether I'm using plastics or I'm using crawlers, I like to have jig heads that have just a little bit of a splash of white on it. So let's see if I can find one back here. Yeah, so here's a couple examples couple examples. So right here I got a Swimbait. It's kind of more of like a brown tannish type natural color. And then I have a head on it that's mostly white. There's a little splash of purple on the top. So we got a Smeltinator. It's like almost like purpley pink on the top, but it's mostly white. So sometimes having a little bit more of a brighter pop of, it's not color, lack of color, it's white, you know. And then here's one of my absolute go-tos for night crawlers. I actually don't know if I should be showing you this. This is almost, I should almost keep this, well, you guys probably already know. So here's a Smeltinator. This is actually the new one, tungsten Smeltinator. You know, obviously super lucky that I get to play with some of this stuff before it all comes out, but as you can see, it's really white on the bottom. The profile, the actual color itself, when you look at it from the side, you know, there's a lot of browns, and then it's got the black on top, but there's just a lot of contrast with this color in general. So you got the white belly, you got the gray side, you got black on top. It actually looks a lot like a walleye. And yeah, it just seems like having that little pop of white when you're pulling that night crawler over the top of fish, it just seems like for whatever reason they can see it better. I fished with buddies before, and they've had all black jigs or green pumpkin jigs, so darker colors. And it seems like there's been times when we've thrown at the same fish together, and you know, he might make 1 or 2 casts, and it's like the fish didn't even see it for whatever reason. And these aren't necessarily clear bodies of water. Some of them are a little bit more tannicky, but then I come in afterwards with a jig that has white on it, and it's like the fish instantly poises up, like it can just see it and identify it a lot better, and then, you know, you end up getting the bite. So anyway, it's just something you kind of got to play around with. Color is super lake dependent. You might find that, you know, you have an absolute favorite color on certain lakes. Like I got a bobber tied up right here, but this jig, this one is Northland's tungsten jig in that short shank, but this is a little 16th ounce jig. But what I want to show you is the color. It's blue and white. This is absolutely one of the very best colors out on Mille Lacs. So caught a bunch of fish on it, been in the boat with guys like Hawthorne, catching a lot of fish on this color. I think it's called Moonglow. But anyway, you get the idea. That's a lake that's close to me, so I have some local knowledge on that lake. Wherever you live, whether it's Wisconsin, Dakotas, New York, Ontario, Manitoba, down the line, you know your bodies of water really well. So just experiment with colors and play around with stuff until you figure out what works. All right, let's talk a little bit about swimbait fishing, because obviously it's been working really good. So this is exactly what I have tied up. So this is a 1/2 ounce head. It's actually a Smeltinator head. You can use either like the 4 or the 5/0 hook. And I got this paired with a 4-inch paddle shad. So this is a, you know, really soft and supple paddle tail. So the tail itself does not actually create a ton of thump in the water. So it's actually a paddle tail that I'm pretty comfortable using in clear bodies of water, because it's more of a like visual, almost finesse paddle tail. But the 4-inch profile does make for a pretty beefy profile. And it's also made of TPE, so it does float. The plastic itself floats. So I like to use a little bit of a heavier head. So I got a 1/2 ounce head. There's actually 3/4 and 1 ounce heads that are coming out this next year as well. So I do like those. But another one I got right here. So when I want to get more finesse, and it's not as important to me that the bait is falling quickly, you know, when the fish are moving a lot, it's nice to have something that falls quickly so you can get it in front of them and get their attention, engage them. Another thing I got here is, this is actually a 1/4 ounce head, and I have that with the 4-inch plastic, and this profile is going to fall a lot slower. So it's still like a pretty beefy profile if the fish are feeding on just stuff that's a little bit bigger and you feel like you need to have a bigger profile. The 4-inch plastic, you know, is still obviously just as big as the 4-inch plastic I had set up on here, but with that 1/4 ounce head, it falls so much slower, and you can just barely reel this thing, and it's gonna swim straight, and that tail is gonna be kicking like crazy, even at slow speeds. So this is a cool profile. Another thing I'll do is I will take that same head, the quarter ounce smeltinator, and I'll put that 3.5 on it. And then this is just like a super, super tasty bite-sized morsel that, like this exact setup, you know, like a natural colored 3.5 incher paired up with a quarter. That exact setup is something I've caught a number of fish on Mille Lacs on, because you can fish it so slow. You can just hang it in front of the fish. A lot of times I'll cast it to them and I'll let it swim, fall down to bottom. And a lot of times they'll just eat it on the way down because it's just such a tantalizing tail kick as it falls down to bottom. So anyway, that's a quick little aside about swim bait fishing specifically. Obviously, in the month of August, you can catch them on swim baits. I think I'm fishing today, it's like August 1st, but this presentation is gonna hold all the way through the month on a lot of different bodies of water. And even, you know, some of the bodies of water that are super clear, super pressured, if I want to catch them on an artificial, a lot of times a swim bait is going to be what I run for. So on to some more fishing and some more tips.
Now, usually my goal when I'm using my electronics, targeting fish like this, is I want the fish to eat upwards. So I'll work that bait upwards in the water column and get them to eat that way. But the nice thing about a lot of these presentations, even the swim bait, is the fish will eat them off the bottom as well. So there's a misconception that you always have to be working baits like this, but a lot of times if you shake them on the bottom, you can get bites. So that is a good option, especially if you're working that fish and you're starting to get really close to the boat, or maybe you made a shorter cast. It's just better to have those fish pointed down, looking at your bait, instead of looking upwards and potentially seeing your boat.
See if he'll eat it off the, oh, there we go. He did, he ate it off the bottom. Okay, my next tip is actually gonna be just about kind of where you should fish in relation to other anglers. So my opinion is that all these lakes that we fish, it doesn't matter where you're at, there are a crap load of walleyes in all of these lakes, in my opinion. So my theory with that is that when you get to summer, man, these fish are spread out all over the place. They are on all different types of, wow, this fish could be big, honestly, if we're being, hope I don't have my head cam on. I'll grab my head cam. This is a big one. So my theory is that if there are fish everywhere, then there's not a big need to fish right by people. This fish is seriously dogging me, man. This is a seriously nice fish. Ooh, and I don't think he's a pike because he hasn't went on any big runs. Oh yeah, that's just a good walleye right there. Just a good Walter. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh gosh, that's a nice one. That is a seriously nice fish. So I do say this tip at different times of the year, you know. Let's see. Let's just measure him really quick. Another 27.5. That one just barely, actually just a little bit shy of 27 3/4. There we go, check her out. We'll get her right back. It's kind of hard to give good tips when you're fighting 27+ inch fish. So it seems like all these fish end up being a little bit bigger than I expect when I hook up with them. So anywho, my thought is, especially this time of year, I feel like in spring, you know, there's fish spread out across flats. Obviously, you know, a lot of area to chase those fish. But it does seem like when you get to summer and they start using that main lake structure, there are going to be some key spots, especially if you're talking about isolated points and stuff like, or isolated humps and stuff like that. But for me, a lot of times, any shoreline on the lake can be good, or not shoreline, but any structure on the lake, any weed line on the lake can be good. So for me, I'm staying away from people. It seems like, especially in today's day and age, forward facing sonar, you know, one person can really work an area pretty good. So coming in behind people is not always super effective. But the cool thing is that, you know, if you're using your electronics, whether it's forward facing or it's 2D or it's side imaging, if you're using your electronics to identify where there are some fish, it seems like any area that has some fish will have more fish. So if it was me, I would avoid areas where there are other anglers. There's just no need to play bumper boats in the month of August. Obviously, some lakes, like I said, will have some really, really good spots and high percentage spots. But for the most part, most lakes are going to have well over 100 spots on them that are going to be, you know, capable of catching fish in the month of August. So that's just another one to think about when you're going out, when you're fishing on a lake. You see someone on a spot, just go to a totally different spot. If you're fishing in an area and someone wants to set up camp right where you're fishing as well, you know, it's unfortunate that they pulled up on you, but you're better off, honestly, just running off to a different spot and giving it to them. So now, you might have your favorite spots on a lake, and that doesn't mean you never go there because there's people on it. But what I like to do in that case is I like to go back to those spots, you know, like a few hours after people have left it alone, because a lot of times those spots will reset with new fish. So that's the way I like to think about it. You know, these lakes have so many walleyes in them, and you don't need to be fighting and playing bumper boats and competing for one particular spot. You know, I've been out on many different lakes and super low density lakes. That's like one thing that I've been doing a lot this summer and last summer, is specifically targeting walleyes on lakes that have really low density, because sometimes a lot of those lakes have some really big ones in the survey data. So that's why I've been going to those lakes. But even on the lakes that are considered super low numbers, it seems like everywhere you go and everywhere you look around, there's a lot of fish. So imagine if you go to a lake that's actually kind of good for, you know, just overall numbers.
All right, this last tip is for forward-facing sonar users. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the importance of adjusting my range while I'm hunting for these big suspended fish.
Bumping that range out farther is super critical if you want to find suspended walleyes a lot faster in the month of August. So I'll show you actually what I'm doing here. So I got it at 100 right now, plus. Now it's out at 175, and what that allows us to do is to run and see fish that are out a lot farther out in front of us and out to the side. You're just opening your range so much more. I have my trolling motor set anywhere from 8 to 9, as you can, or 8 to 10, I should say, as you can see there. And what I'm doing is I'm just running around with the foot pedal, panning left and right. You can probably see right here with the head cam, you can see the trolling motor here. We're just running left and right until we see a mark. And usually I'm seeing marks in that 120 to 140 range. That's generally the area where I'm going to notice them. Sometimes they're closer, sometimes they're way out at the 175 line when I first originally picked them up. But what I do is I pan really quickly. The screen's still recording. Yep, okay. And I'll see if I can find one really quick for you guys, so we can just give you a quick demonstration of how I actually approach it. We slid off the structure a little bit. So if we turn around here into the wind, I always like to work into the wind when I can. Sometimes, especially when I'm using like big paddle tails that I can easily throw 100 feet. A lot of times I actually won't care as much if I'm going with the wind or against it, because these cast so good. So you can see that mark right there at 120. We saw him a little bit earlier. This is not a giant mark, but as we zoom in, or we zoom our range up, that fish is gonna look a little bit more respectable. A lot of times you'll just see it kind of as a flicker when it's out a good distance. So let's see if we can make a good cast here. That should be pretty dang good. I'm gonna reel it a little bit closer. I'm just gonna drop it right behind the fish with this swim bait here. And get down to range. So you notice that I pulled my range back into 100 feet. And why I like to do that is just because it's a lot easier for me to judge casting distances, stuff like that. We couldn't get that fish to move, but you get the idea. That's my general approach. I'm running around at 175, and then as I see the fish, I shrink it down to 100 to the range where I'm most comfortable making casts at those fish, to the range where I'm most comfortable actually watching the mood of the fish. That's another big thing. You know, whether you're using plastics, hard baits, or live bait, just reading the mood of the fish while they're chasing your bait is so critical, because what that allows you to do is make adjustments to actually get that fish to bite. So a lot of times, you know, on a lot of lakes, there is like hundreds and hundreds of yards of dead water between big walleyes that you see if you're specifically hunting for really big ones. You know, a structure like this, there's going to be some big ones floating around on the outside. You know, you're going to see some big ones, but then there's also going to be like smaller ones closer to bottom. But, you know, a lot of fisheries that I fish on, I will run around, you know, really quickly like this. Is that one I saw over there? Sorry, it's hard to talk and run around quickly at the same time. No fish there. A lot of bodies of water that I fish, I'm actually doing something similar to this, running along the weed line. Right here, this is a big giant, basically like a big giant hump complex. There's a fish right out there. I saw him at about 140. And now I'm just gonna slowly tighten up the range as we get closer. Keep an eye on them. I don't want to lose them. Walleyes are good disappearing artists, so I like to kind of keep my eye on him, or at least just have a really strong idea of where he's at. And then you kind of see, once it's at 100, you can kind of analyze it a little better. You can look at it, you can see what size it is a little bit better, and you can also look to see if maybe it's a bait cloud or something like that. But I like to slow down and just kind of analyze any of the bigger, you know, more bigger marks that pop out at a distance that aren't very obviously bait. So this one is very obviously walleye. As you can see, he engaged on it. And we're going to see, he's going to follow it up, and either we're going to get bit or we won't. Swimming it. He's following it real tight for sure. He's following it. There we go. There we go. All right, so that was a good demonstration of how I do it. So if you're out in the month of August chasing big suspendos like that, which I love to do, bump that range out, cover a lot more ground a lot faster. The nice thing is when you're running really fast like that, having your range bumped out super far, what that allows you to do is run really fast, and then when you see a fish out there, quit running at it, you know, let that boat just slowly drift closer. So you're not running up on top of those fish. So that's why it's nice to have a big long range. Oh my gosh, guys, this is a really big one. Why are we getting all really, really big ones? Oh my word, guys. Look at, he's just slowly taking drag, which is a good sign. I don't like when it's zzz, zzz, because that's usually pike. Beauty. 25 and a half. But that is exactly how you do it, guys. If you want to be more efficient when you're out chasing big fish, when you're using forward-facing sonar, that is my last tip for you in the month of August. Thank you for watching. Oh my gosh. I shot this whole video in like an hour, or an hour and a half maybe at the most. Gosh, there's big fish swimming around. I'm gonna go catch more of them. I wish you guys were out here with me, but yeah, we'll probably shoot some more content today. So anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you have stellar luck in the month of August. I hope you break your PB in August. I hope you have a bunch of fish fries in August. And stay tuned, because we got lots more walleye fishing content coming here in the weeks ahead. So it's summer, and I'm just jacked to be on the water.